Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. We are going to wait about 5 minutes to allow all of the attendees to be present. So we will start promptly at 10:06. Thank you. All right, I just got a message stating from GoToWebinar that we have reached our maximum amount of attendees. There are about 101 attendees in this webinar today. Thank you all so much for coming. I cannot express to you all enough how delighted I am to be hosting a webinar on my favorite subject. So first and foremost, happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I hope everyone has a great St. Patrick's Day today and definitely wears green. I hated being pinched when I was younger and in school for not wearing green, but so welcome to the Tennessee Coalitions to end Domestic and Sexual Violence's presentation on ethics and social service nonprofit work. We are going to give we have already given an additional 5 minutes for everyone to join the webinar today, and apparently there are 101 attendees present, which I am so thankful for. First and foremost, I do want to preface this presentation with the statement being that the views within the presentation are solely my own and that they do not necessarily represent the views of the Tennessee Coalition. Also, I know that we have all been inundated with Zoom and GoToWebinar educational courses since this time last year. So take the information that you need from this webinar and throw out all the rest. Although I am hoping that if anything sticks with you in this webinar, it will be the definition of ethics, because I will state it way more than a handful of times. So my name is Heather Goodman-Cave. I am a master's degree level social worker. I was also a former domestic violence court advocate for my area's General Sessions Courthouse, where I've written over 50 orders of protections. That position will forever be my favorite position that I've ever held. It required a lot of ethical decision making on a daily basis. I have been a social worker for a little over 5 years in various positions, including the position I mentioned earlier, and I also count the position I have now as a program specialist to be one in the social work realm of services. I cannot exclaim enough how the social work field is so rewarding and yet complex and very challenging. I have gained so much from being a social worker in the past 5 years. It had been the most educational experience I've ever had, and I plan to continue to evolve my education. A major piece of my social worker education that I believe is highly applicable to all professionals working in the social services realm is ethics. We who work in the social service industry make decisions that involve ethical issues or dilemmas on a daily basis. Many of us, like I do, have a trusted confidant at our workplaces, whether it is our immediate supervisor or coworker, to consult when we are faced with complex ethical decision making. Some of us are not so lucky and face these ethical decisions alone. However, hopefully, I will address in today's webinar how to handle ethics in the social service workplace with some ease. As a person who has a social work background, I'm going to focus heavily on the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, or simply the NASW. In this webinar, and reflect on what I learned in school and my experience with on-the-job training. I also heavily use the text Ethical Decisions for Social Work Practice by Dolgoff, Harrington, and Lowenberg. Believe it or not, ethics was my favorite course that I took for my MSW. My simplified version of ethics is doing what is right and behaving in accordance. However, ethics is complex in that what is right to me may not be what is right for you. Luckily, all social workers and those who work in the social service arena can refer to the NASW Code of Ethics for reference. Therefore, I will explain ethics according to the social worker stance. But again, much of the social worker stance involves the ideals and beliefs of all those who work in the social service arena. So you can easily replace the position of social worker with social service worker in the future slides. The National Association of Social Workers organization was developed in 1955. The NASW Code of Ethics was approved in 1996 and revised in 2017. It needed to serve as a guide to social work professionals and those who work in the social services realm. It gives a list of core values and principles to use as a guiding principle, along with common sense and good judgment. The code is organized into 4 sections. The first 3 are very short. They consist of the preamble, the purpose, and the ethical principles, which are depicted in this slide. The last section is the bulk of the materials and it encases the ethical standards. This section is about 4 to 5 pages long, if not longer the last time I checked, which was last night. As you can see from the slide, it shows the ethical principles of the Code of Ethics, which are: 1. Social workers' primary goal is to help people in need and to address social problems. 2. Social workers challenge social injustice. 3. Social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of the person. 4. Social workers recognize the central importance of human relationships. 5. Social workers behave in a trustworthy manner. Emphasize trustworthy, which involves ethical decision making and following your own intuition. And lastly, 6. Social workers practice within their areas of competence and develop and enhance their professional expertise. The simplified version of the ethical standards that they concern social workers' ethical responsibilities to clients, social workers' ethical responsibilities to colleagues, social workers' ethical responsibilities in practice settings, social workers' ethical responsibilities as professionals, social workers' ethical responsibilities to the social work profession, and lastly, social workers' ethical responsibilities to the broader general society. To look at the NASW Code of Ethics, you can go to https://www.socialworkers.org/ethics/code-of-ethics/English, or you can simply type in Code of Ethics in Google. It is so important that we are all knowledgeable and understand ethics, because ethics is an integral part of how we all behave in our own positions. So my objectives for what I plan on teaching within this webinar today are the difference between ethics, morals, and values, how to navigate through scenarios regarding ethics and morals, and lastly, further information regarding ethics. I just want to make sure that you all were able to hear the audio, but in essence, this TikTok was from the Netflix series, The Politician, and he was just asking his mother an ethical dilemma question, whether what he was prepared to do was right or whether it was moral. So I advanced the slide too quickly, but I don't know if anyone has taken a webinar by me, but I am the self-proclaimed TikTok queen. I'm a little over the age demographic, but I still spend quite some time entertained by the app. There's so much on there that is so educational. So this slide was a short clip, again, on the Netflix series, The Politician. If you guys have not seen The Politician on Netflix, I highly suggest and recommend it. It was amazing. Throughout social service history, there has been the question of, what is the difference between ethics, morals, and values? You'll probably hear me define ethics and morals several times within this webinar, but I'm a firm believer that the more you hear a definition, the more you will retain the information. Ethics addresses human conduct and moral decision making. Like mentioned in the TikTok, ethics assists to address what is right from what is wrong. Values are guides for selecting desirable behavior. We all have different sets of values. There are societal values, familial values, and individual values. The social work values are modeled from societal values and are the ethical principles mentioned earlier, which were service, societal justice, respecting the dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. The difference between values and ethics is that ethics decides right from wrong, where values decide what is desirable. Lastly, morals are principles or rules of conduct that define standards for acceptable behavior in society. The question always remains, what is the proper moral stance on any issue? Our societal beliefs are diverse from other societal beliefs, and they are forever changing. The societal beliefs we have in America are different from the societal beliefs we have in South Korea. Another definition of ethics is the moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conduct of an activity. Some examples of unethical behavior include exaggerating service utilization, data supplied to funders, ignoring eligibility criteria for agency services to enhance revenue, providing different services to people of different races, genders, sexuality, etc. Many of our grants, if your position or agency is grant funded, state to not discriminate individuals regardless of their age, race, gender, sexuality, etc. There are numerous types of ethics. There are professional ethics and general ethics or personal ethics. Professional ethics utilizes professional values in professional practice activities. Professional ethics place an emphasis on the interest of the client. So the difference is that general ethics states that all people should be respected, where professional ethics states that all people should be respected, comma, but priority to the interest to the client. The next slide is a video on professional ethics that I thought you all would enjoy. Okay, I am going to stop the video. I'm so sorry if there is no audio. I don't know how to fix the audio. I can hear it on my end. Um, so please accept my apologies. I will continue the slides. The video just explained professional ethics and how to make professional decisions when it comes to ethical decision making. So I will further and advance the slide. There we go. Sorry about that again. I apologize. So professional workplace ethics is demonstrating personal accountability and effective work habits. For example, punctuality, working productively with others, and time workload management. It emphasizes understanding the impact of nonverbal communication on professional work image. It is different from personal ethics in that personal ethics are those that a person identifies with in respect to people and situations that they deal with in everyday life. Professional ethics refers to the ethics that a person must adhere to in respect of their interactions and business dealings in their professional life. For additional information regarding professional workplace ethics, please talk to your agency and do some research in your agency employee manual. Many of the agencies that we are employed from addresses ethics and morality in the employee manual. Also, on the off chance that your employee manual does not address these topics, seek additional guidance via your immediate supervisor or your executive director. It is my humble opinion that all employee manuals should give employees at least a simplified guide into their beliefs and what to do if an employee is stuck in an unethical situation. Much like the 4Ds in bystander intervention, there are the 3 unspoken Bs in ethics. The 3 Bs are breaches, boundaries, and behavior. Examples of breaches are disclosing personal information about a patient to the social worker's friends or relatives, treating a client without obtaining consent, using the professional relationship for a personal gain or to further the social worker's religious, business, and or political interests, and sexual contact with a client that is absolutely forbidden under any circumstances. If anyone has ever watched Lucifer on Netflix, the psychologist has multiple relations or relationships with several of her clients, which is highly unethical behavior that should be reprimanded by suspension and termination of licensure. I know as far as like psychology and social work, there is a licensing website that tells either the clinician's name and their offense on the website, and it gives information regarding to what they did. So I do not want to see anybody on that website if you have a licensure under psychology or social work. Boundary violations are a major concern in social work. The primary issue with boundaries has to do with power differential between the professional and the client. I learned about power differential in a Title IX training that I took with Atixa, which is an amazing company. What I learned about power differential is that the person who's vulnerable, i.e., the person with little to no power, feels overwhelmingly incapable of going against the person who has power. Therefore, the person with power has to be careful on how to navigate ethical decision making. Examples of boundaries are seducing the client, which we spoke about before, sharing of personal information with the client, including information on your social media contacts that are personal contacts and not professional contacts. I know many of our organizations have designated Facebook pages for our agencies, but there is a huge difference between giving a client your agency's Facebook page versus your own personal Facebook account. I highly, strongly do not suggest giving away your social media details to anyone. There needs to be a clear, intentional line between your personal life and your professional life. One of the stories from my favorite professor was when her neighbor asked for divorce counseling. We all need to practice not having dual relationships. So your neighbor should not be your client, and your client should never be your friend, regardless of the time or anything else, because there are implications. You can always make referrals or ask a coworker to take over a case if you personally know the intended client. Another boundary violation similar to sharing online social media is that of sharing a personal cell phone or home phone number / landline, or inviting the client into your home. Um, there was a student that I went to school with who had a social worker licensure. She was at LMSW, and she allowed the client to live in her home. That was one of the most unethical things that I have ever known to happen. So how do we respond to boundary violations? If a coworker or supervisor asks you to do something that you feel uncomfortable with, simply tell them no. For me, I'm a people pleaser, so I always feel like I have to justify why I'm saying no. I, along with many other people, need to practice saying no and not having to explain ourselves. Or you can tell them, I feel uncomfortable with what you are asking me to do. If they ask you why you feel uncomfortable, ask them for clarification on the task. Usually, after being asked with clarification, the person with the request notices why the ask is uncomfortable. Never feel like you are a burden for asserting your boundaries. Your position is only at risk when you don't stand up for your beliefs and go with the flow. Again, I know that I'm a serious people pleaser, and I have noticed where pleasing others has had a negative effect on my life. So always prioritize your feelings and your beliefs above others. We all intuitively know when we should not complete a task because of the ethics surrounding it. Addressing boundary violations and protecting yourself. If a coworker or supervisor asks you to do something that you feel uncomfortable with, realize why you feel uncomfortable. Notify the person of your concerns. An example would be, I feel uncomfortable with fudging the numbers in our grant reporting because I know there is a significant legal risk with a task that I will be liable for. You need to always protect yourself in accordance with doing your job. If you don't protect yourself, you could lose your position. Many of us, like myself, have made careers, and we can't afford to lose our career for a moment of unintended, unethical behavior or decision making. You do not want to be the fall guy for unethical behavior. Again, protect yourself and have proof or receipts because everyone will protect their jobs first. Always have documentation of the ask that's being asked, of the unethical ask that's being asked, and your response to it. Examples of electronic behavior include social networking sites can provide considerable personal information. The internet may provide another source of information about a client. However, accessing the information can be a breach of the social worker's ethical expectation to respecting the client's privacy. Although a social worker is expected to be technologically proficient, she or he should obtain the patient's permission before viewing a patient's related information through social media. It is up to you to decide whether adding your previous client, coworker, supervisor, etc., to your social media accounts. However, my stance is to have a clear differential between your personal life and your professional life. But again, there is no rules against having clients in your social media. There is a time limit usually in social work. I know my professors always stated that they would add us, the students, after 5 years. But there's like an icky feeling with adding someone that you have previously been paid by to your personal social media accounts. So in my opinion, I would never add a client, an employer, a supervisor, or a coworker, just to make sure that I'm able to be my true self on social media without having to worry about professionalism. However, social work stance is that adding your client's previous or presence takes away from their autonomy. It also takes away from yours. It allows you, the previous social service worker, to take a closer look into the client's life that you should honestly not have the privilege to. I highly discourage adding anyone, including coworkers and supervisors, to your social media because it takes away your outlet and your safe space online to be fully yourself outside of work. Commitments in the social service field are first and foremost to their clients, to your clients. Some of the common issues that may arise include confidentiality, professional boundaries, respecting the client's right to self-determination, and being aware of conflicts of interest. Social service workers may also face legal and ethical issues when interacting with other professionals. According to the NASW Code of Ethics, social workers have a legal and ethical responsibility to treat their colleagues with respect, collaborate with other professionals to resolve ethical disputes, avoid sexual relationships with supervisors or students or coworkers, consult other colleagues for advice and guidance when this is in the best interest of the client, and report all unethical conduct, regardless if the unethical conduct is done by a client or a supervisor. Some ethical and legal issues in practice settings may include dual relationships involving supervisors and supervisees, staying current with changes to the field by participating in regular continuing education courses, and maintaining ethical billing practices, such as avoiding double billing or only billing for services that were provided, or grant reporting. Social workers also have a commitment to the society as a whole. They must work to promote social justice and public welfare and should not participate in activities that promote inequality or discrimination. So let's utilize some practice scenarios. I do want to say, first and foremost, all these practice scenarios demonstrate highly unethical behavior. The first scenario is Belinda is a mental health provider that works with one of the women's shelters in her area. She got intimately close with one of the women at the shelter. Their personal relationship involved travel with the client, extensive gift exchanges, visits to Belinda's home, and camping trips. This is highly unethical behavior because not only does it provide information on like a power differential, Belinda obviously has more power than the client, and it could it could lead to like a coercive relationship. And in all honesty, Belinda with her line of work should never have any relationships at all with anyone that's ever had to like pay her for her services. The next scenario is one of the advocates at a nearby shelter received money and benefits in exchange for selling her multi-level marketing products. This is highly unethical behavior because the advocate is benefiting somehow by someone at the shelter in which they should not be doing. I know that a lot of people are selling things like Scentsy or LuLaRoe leggings. That was from a long time ago, but you should never mix your side hustle with your actual job. So the last scenario is a nearby shelter advocate accidentally spoke about a client at their shelter, not knowing that the person they were speaking to had a personal familial relationship with the client. One of the shelters I volunteered with a long time ago and not near anyone's area, um, I did a training with them, and the training manager always said, never talk about scenarios um, that could lead to someone noticing that it was similar to what they had gone through. Like, for example, in a rural community, everyone kind of knows everyone's business. So if I were to say, this client was seen for this because this happened, someone else might know exactly who they are. And so you don't want to talk about like scenarios going around in your local shelter or your local community because someone might know that person. And it's unethical because they were divulged in information that they had not known previously. Unethical behavior is caused by struggles with significant issues of professional impairment, desperation, greed, egocentrism, self-justification, exposure to incremental dishonesty, loss of aversion, challenging performance goals, and lastly, time pressure. I know that we have all been in unethical decision making process. There's always a crisis at hand that we all have to like navigate through. And so my best advice would always be to always seek guidance. You should never have to make a decision by yourself. So I know for me, I have a really good supervisor who always helps me navigate when I feel like there is a crisis at hand. Some of the ways to prevent unethical behavior is to ask questions, clarify what is being done, be transparent with your work, and ask for honesty with others. Set clear boundaries, and lastly, know the ethical implications. For every decision you make, always going to be there's always going to be an outcome. So whether you make a decision based on what you think is right, or whether you make a decision based on what your agency thinks is right, something will always come up. I encourage you to always look through your employee manual, look and see if there's any guidance on ethical decision making, and lastly, to like follow your own intuition. you honestly know what is right from what is wrong. So if you follow your intuition, you should at least have some guidance on, did I do what I should have done? Does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to leave in the chat box? I'm going to allow for a brief moment for everyone to type their questions and or comments, but I just wanted to thank you all for coming here today. I'm really honored to give this ethics presentation to you all. I think ethics it's something that we all need to talk about because again, you know, we are faced with daily ethical decision making. Some of us know how to navigate it expertly, but some of us, like me, we need a little guidance. And that's why our supervisors or our colleagues or our coworkers are essential. So that concludes my webinar on ethics and social service nonprofit work. I hope we can all become social justice warriors and practice ethical decision making in our everyday careers. And again, everybody, happy St. Patrick's Day. Please go out there today and practice some self-care in a way that makes your soul happy today. I hope that you guys all have a great and productive Wednesday and remaining of the year. Thank you all.